Hello, and welcome to the Tiniest Spark, executive function from theory to reality. This podcast is designed to share information and strategies for educators and caregivers to encourage and support young learners to become more independent and successful. I am your host, Rachel Ramsey. I'm so excited that you chose to spend some time with me today when we will be discussing metacognition. What is metacognition? Metacognition may be a term that you've heard before. Basically, it means thinking about thinking. Have you ever asked a young learner, what were you thinking when you blankety blank blank? And they stare at you and say, I don't know, or shrug. Sometimes you might be thinking that they're being flip or just trying to intentionally irritate you, when in fact they might really not have thought that through at all. Executive function occurs in the prefrontal cortex part of the brain, which is not fully developed until people are in their mid 20s, which means that part of the brain is still really spending a lot of time learning, where a lot of times adolescents are just going full force and they really aren't thinking about what are some of the consequences or potential fallout of their actions or choices. So the metacognition might not be happening in that situation. As with many executive function skills, they're often there. They just aren't always accessible or accessed. Even while they're being developed, those are still there and they are ready to be there. What we need to do as the adults in their lives is create an environment where those skills can be fostered and accessed. So, here are some of the things that I have done to really work on improving metacognition and create metacognitive opportunities for young learners. And this first one is such a tiny thing, but it's monumental and has completely changed how I function and interact with students in my classroom. And that is question techniques. What I mean is, I don't just say, go pick up a piece of paper and get a pencil. I can say that same thing, but if I rephrase it as a question, all of a sudden I'm not doing the thinking. The young learner, the adolescent, the student that I'm speaking with now has to do the thinking. So, do you have your paper and do you have a pencil? They have to pause. They need to think about it, which is metacognition, thinking about thinking. So, what I now do is spend a lot more of my time asking questions. Do they find it annoying? Yeah, they do. It's a challenge and it's something new. So, they need to really stop, pause, and think versus me just telling everybody what to do. It's a huge change. In fact, it's so natural to me now. And the people who've ever been with me when I've presented know this story. When I first got my cute little beagle, Bella, when she was a puppy, I got so used to asking questions that we were trying to train her to sit at the door. And every time I would look at her and we got to a door, I would say, okay, Bella, we're at a door. So what do we do when we're at a door? Now, she did actually sit a couple of times, but it really wasn't executive function skills. It was just that I had trained her to sit at a door. So questioning can become such a huge part and a natural thing to start asking and shifting that a little bit. Put the onus of thinking and metacognition onto the young learner. That will allow them to start actually doing that thinking, and it becomes part of their own pieces. In fact, there are now times where students will start to come up to me and I can start to see them already thinking because they know what I'm going to ask, and then they end up solving their own issue, which is wonderful. And then that allows me time to actually be there as a resource for them when they really truly need me, which means I'm modeling the metacognition skill as I'm having conversations with them. Metacognition could also be thought about as reflecting. And some questions that sometimes I'll ask is, how did things go with that long-term project? Or is that behavior choice helping you or hurting you? And it's really important to ask that question not just when things are going poorly, but when they're going well. Otherwise, they end up not really hearing you and they just know they need to kind of go along with what you're saying. So, is that choice helping you or hurting you? Um, we want to continue to help them to make wise choices, and metacognition is really important there. Young learners are not always aware of the good feelings that come with making a wise choice. So, us helping them to pause and say, hey, that really worked out for you. How does that feel? And they can pause and think about it and go, you know what? That actually feels really good. Then we can help them make that connection between that positive feeling and, you know what, I think I might want to make those choices again so that I can feel this again. Where a lot of times we'll say something when things aren't going well. Does that feel well? No, it doesn't. We want to do the same thing on the flip side. So we want to actually equate a good feeling with a really wonderful and positive choice. The more that we can model that and the more that we can stay in a questioning, tone free conversation and dialogue, the more that they're going to be open to that and to thinking and practicing that. This is where we come in. So, how can we as adults model our metacognition thinking out loud? So, as a community, let's keep thinking about what are some ways that we can model metacognition thinking out loud? What can we do? When I'm planning dinner, can I start talking about, what are we going to do today? What are we going to need to do for dinner? If we need to have dinner done by 6:30, but this lasagna takes 45 minutes to cook, I need to put it in at 5:45. However it is, that's metacognition and thinking out loud. Do you plan out activities for next week or for the month as a family or as a unit? Even in a classroom, a lot of times we can talk about what's going to be happening, not just this week, but maybe even in the month. That might not mean much for students necessarily. A lot of times when they're writing something that's due on Monday, that sounds like eons away. And helping them hear us have conversations about that would be really important. Are you taking a trip? Or do you need to arrive somewhere on time? Do you need supplies? Or sports equipment, or what do you need, and what can you do to help make sure? Again, can you talk about it out loud? Let's see, if I'm going to go to my cycling class, do I have my bag packed with my cycling shoes, my socks, a water bottle? Where am I going to put my bag? And if I need to get there, class starts at 6, I need to get there probably 10 minutes before to make sure I have a seat and can get everything set up. So I need to leave the house at such and such a time. All of that is metacognition, and we are modeling what we kind of inherently do within our minds. But if young learners don't see us modeling that, they don't know that this is something that occurs within our brains and using our executive function and that prefrontal cortex and those skills. All right. I hope this helps give you a little bit more food for thought about metacognition and some ways that we can share and support one another. So, if you have other ideas, thoughts, ways that you model this, suggestions, please feel free to share them either here or at TeenChangers12 on Instagram or Twitter. We would love to continue this positive dialogue going and supporting one another. Be the light in your day and someone else's day. And also don't forget to look for that light, especially when it feels like you're lost in the dark. Until next time, take care.